SATSANG with Jean-Luc Ayoun. January 19, 2019. Testimonials, questions and answers. Well, then everyone will settle in quietly. Good. If there's one of them who wants to keep me company, or two, they can. A sister. We don't appear on the video. No. Go ahead. No, you don't appear, it's just me, unless you put your head like that towards me. Hello friends, hello Bridget, hello Claudie, hello Jacqueline. Hello everyone, there are too many of them. Laughs. Good. So, we're going to start this satsang until 6 o'clock. It's open, that is, you ask for what you want, the weather, so the goal is to exchange, of course, quite simply. Well, don't forget that when you have something to say, yes, you can come, of course. Brother. Not to talk, to sit down, may I? To sit down, yes, not to talk, since we're not going to repeat, that is, as soon as there's a question, you come and ask it there, and then I'll answer, okay? Good. And embrace. Everyone is settling in quietly. Well, everyone here, by the way. Good. Come on, who's starting the debates? You have to come here, a first request or a first, whatever you want, you can. It's not just questions, it can also be testimonies, whatever you want. Come on. Come on. Sister, I would just like to know if, with yesterday, there were changes on the ionosphere and on me. Yes. Woman. Yes, absolutely. Moreover, by the way, apparently the Schumann resonance, we've been receiving mega missiles there for an hour or two, and that was indeed the case yesterday, of course, during the meeting with the dolphins. You will find more and more of each other, even if you're alone in your corner, that you have the same possibility, without trying to act on the ionosphere or on Schumann. From the moment you enter Agape, even if it is not in the Agape resonances that we have implemented with the technique without technique that you practiced, from the moment one of us, wherever he is on this earth, puts himself in Agape, obviously, there are effects. It's a perfect illustration of what they said, you know, when a butterfly's wing breaks, it's the whole universe that shakes. Now it is an objective reality. Since the celebration of the ether we did yesterday, it is something that will become more and more clear to you. Even if it seems completely unlikely to you, we are right in the middle of what is called quantum. Not the song of songs, the physical quantum, laughs, of physics, that is to say that there is really this Agape resonance, as we have called it, this Agape without anyone, which is settling in, which we have discussed, which will manifest itself in an increasingly spontaneous way. So that's part of the inevitability of what's going to happen, of course. And besides, many brothers and sisters feel it without even knowing where it comes from. Suddenly they feel either vibration, a special state of consciousness that is linked to this deployment of Agape. And, until now, as I said, I repeat, we functioned in Agape, first by the absorption of the essences, then by the resonance of the heart of one to the heart of the other. This encounter is between the two, and what is between the two, that is to say the intelligence of light, obviously, it is available via the Christic matrix for everyone. That is to say, the more you are going to be in Agape, even without knowing what it is, even if you feel nothing, the translation you know it, is laughter, joy, smile, whatever the issues, the more you will have an action, independent of yourself, but simply by your presence and your absence together, on the whole universe. As Fahim said this morning, not only in the surrounding environment, you experienced this last night, for example. And I repeat what I said, because they didn't have the opportunity to hear it, it didn't have the opportunity to be recorded. It's that until now, Agape was done from heart to heart, between one individual and another individual, even if it crossed the individual. Now Agape, indeed, does itself for more and more brothers and sisters. And brothers and sisters, open up. They are not supposed to know that you have done an exercise with whales or an exercise between you of Agape, with the technique without technique, that you have received and that you have practiced. And you will see this more and more clearly. In other words, everything that we call the things that were miracles, telepathy, synchronicity, which I even call ultra-synchronicity, will happen more and more easily. So, you don't need to know where it comes from, who it is, why, how, but it makes available to humanity this zero-time information called the ultimate causal field of physics, the black hole, the terrace. Well, you can take equivalents with lots of words, but it's something that is actually developing, spreading more and more. As Fahim said this morning, the fusion of the ether, the celebration and fusion of the thes that has been carried out, and for some time now, but in an increasingly clear way, will effectively allow this availability of Agape independently of your individual, we can say if you want, in the same way that we have been covered, invested, or doubled somewhere by our body of eternity. In the same way, Agape is unfolding, and it is, as I said many months ago, inevitable, and it is ongoing, it is ongoing. And brothers and sisters, open up. They are not supposed to know that you have done an exercise with whales or an exercise between you of Agape, with the technique without technique, that you have received and that you have practiced. And you will see this more and more clearly. In other words, everything that we call the things that were miracles, telepathy, synchronicity, which I even call ultra-synchronicity, will happen more and more easily. So, you don't need to know where it comes from, who it is, why, how, but it makes available to humanity this zero-time information called the ultimate causal field of physics, the black hole, the terrace. Well, you can take equivalents with lots of words, but it's something that is actually developing, spreading more and more. As Fahim said this morning, the fusion of the ether, the celebration and fusion of the thes that has been carried out, and for some time now, but in an increasingly clear way, will effectively allow this availability of Agape independently of your individual, we can say if you want, in the same way that we have been covered, invested, or doubled somewhere by our body of eternity. In the same way, Agape is unfolding, and it is, as I said many months ago, inevitable, and it is ongoing, it is ongoing. That is to say, from now on, every minute, every day, we can only progress in intensity and revelation, both in terms of the simulacrum. You can see what is happening from all over the world on the revelations. It is even surprising. Of course, there is a conspiracy but universal, for the establishment of this Agape, whether through the movements of the planets. Well, you know, there is the eclipse of the moon, the only one until 2022, the 21, the planets that have become what we call direct in their apparent movements, that we see from here. All this is a conspiracy of love that will put an end to the conspiracy of the shadow, quite simply. That's what you're observing. That's why I've always said that the simulacrum and the sacred are only the two sides of the same coin, and that all this belongs to creation anyway, and is therefore a passing dream. And, zero time, or the event as we have called it, of course, it has already begun since the access to this Agape and the subsorption of essences, since the end of the primary anomaly. Now it is something that emerges, as we feel it in the body. I was talking about it earlier with Bridget. We're talking about vibrations, but in the end, if you look closely, it's no longer a vibrational phenomenon, it's simply matter, bones, all your cells that are no longer vibrating, but shaking, straight away. So the fusion of the thes, as Fahim said, in this image, is the water from above that is mixed with the water from below. That is exactly the message Bridget received in December. What I asked to republish is exactly what happened. And this is what is happening now on a scale that is no longer just for a few people who are interested in this, or who feel or perceive energies, but all, absolutely all the situations experienced individually, wherever on this earth, whatever the manifestation, ultimately led to only one thing, it is Agape. I said it this morning, I say it again, after Fahim I told you that finally, ever, we don't even need it anymore, neither you nor me. All we need is Agape, because that is what we are, regardless of creation and regardless of the dream of creation. We are all this love, so obviously it is not a gratuitous affirmation because, for years, we have been repeating ourselves we are love, we are love, we are love, we are love. Now it is effective, that is to say it is immediate. And this will naturally lead, without you thinking about it, to a repositioning, I would say, of your presence, which will be in this spontaneous reception of Agape, but also in Agape's spontaneous gift, regardless of your will and I would even say, of the circumstances. It was checked yesterday when we had the celebration of Thes on the water. You asked the question in relation to the ionosphere and the Schumann resonance. Yes, of course. We're in direct contact, through the Christic matrix and the intelligence of light, with the notion of unity and also a notion of transfiguration which, in general, precedes the resurrection, but the resurrection now occurs at the same time as the sacrifice and at the same time as the transfiguration. This transfiguration is the moment when we are really in this state. The best marker today is not to feel the energies. Because you have brothers and sisters who feel the energies, who feel the vibrations, really, but they don't live Agape yet. You know very well that when you're in Agape, because there are more and more of you there, that there can be no questions. Agape is only an answer to everything that may arise. And it is independent of us, independent of will, independent of meditation, independent of concentration. Once again, what was the exception is now becoming normal. If you look, even without mentioning the so-called spiritual, esoteric or other environments until now, you can see well in all countries, and in France, we have the example with yellow vests, when you listen to these people talk, but obviously that they talk about love. Why? Why? Because they reject any form of enslavement, even without knowing what it is. And you will see it more and more. It will be increasingly difficult for both of you to endure the slightest form of enslavement, whether family, emotional or societal. And there's nothing you can do about it. Even if you still want to be subject to external authority, because it is societal or family convenience, you will find that you can no longer let yourself be stepped on. It is no longer even stepping on your feet. That is to say, unconsciously, whatever the way it is formulated, even through violence, which is the case in some, for example, France, the yellow jackets, behind there is something else. There is this thirst, not for justice, but for truth. Not the truth of this world, but of absolute truth, even if people cannot formulate, even if they do not feel the vibrations, the chakras and everything that many of us know in life, well, as they themselves say, there will never, ever be a turn back possible. There can be no status quo, that is, the global transformation, and initially the societal transformation, the time it takes until the event will go to its end, but not only in France. Because the notion of ancestry over the other, whether it is even an ancestry or a so-called noble power, for example, maternal and paternal authority, can no longer be maintained. We don't have to tell people, oh yes, you're in Agape, because you say that to a yellow vest, he won't understand. On the other hand, the thirst for freedom and the demand for freedom is not even a financial demand, even if people no longer have enough food or shelter, it is a thirst for freedom that is expressed. So, it is not always expressed in love, but it is linked to Agape. That's why we were told to go through the violence, to go through everything that's going to be seen. That's why Omraham told us for years, you'll see, the worse it gets, the more joy you'll feel. It is not a morbid satisfaction to see something being destroyed, it is simply the truth that is behind it that emerges, even if people cannot formulate it, even if they cannot really make it aware through what we are experiencing, that is, these vibrations, these energies, well, they express the same thing. They express it within the simulacrum, but even this simulacrum today leads to the sacred. And I have always said, I said it this morning, I repeat it, that is to say that the conjunction of the simulacrum and the sacred, since it is an altered and inverted mirror image, leads to the disappearance of the mirror. Not only in the Van Allen belt, as we did with the primary anomaly, but in every living being on this planet. In fact, Farm explained it to me this morning too, in relation to, if only in the second spring, that is, plants no longer have to be subjected to normal biological cycles of some kind. We live it, for many, not everyone, but those who live it, well, they know that there is something different. We talked about it, it's in terms of needs. Whether it is the need for food, physical or subtle, there is a form of independence and at the same time of connection within freedom, where one does not need psychic powers or paranormal gifts to experience this and feel it within our most simple humanity. From that moment on, even if you're in reaction, if we always take the example of yellow vests, it doesn't matter. Because, as all people everywhere in the spiritual world say, in the social movements, they all say the same thing. Even if it is awkward, the finality can only be the same, the end of all confinement and the end of all domination, whether by the Ekans, or even, I would say, by the intergalactic confederation of the free worlds. Of course, we needed great masters in the past, Christ, Buddha, well what you want, today we need no one. And everything will push us in life, in every possible way, to see the reality of this enslavement. Not only on a spiritual level, through predation, but in the daily acts of life. That is to say, all the relationships we had were conditioned by social role, family role, societal role, habits, decorum, good thinking. None of this makes any sense anymore. As we can all see, in a field that is unique to us all, whether it is financial, family or relational, this thirst for freedom can never, ever be extinguished. And you've seen it for several months now, it's only growing, no matter what the apparent price you pay. It proves well that the apocalypse and apotheosis, you have it before your eyes, not only in the inner experience, in the Agape we do, but wherever you look. So, do not be overwhelmed by images, even terrible ones, you must cross them, that is, accept to see, without judging, without condemning, simply, as we have said, embrace. And moreover, you're innumerable, here as everywhere, to know that when you embrace the unacceptable, all this is transformed, not by your will, but really by the intelligence of the light. You see her at work in nature, everywhere. So, even if it has a little bit of a violent side, we will say, especially in social movements, even the most aberrant violence, inevitably leads you to discover who you are, beyond being. There's no way you can escape that. Because even if you oppose yourself, as I said earlier, then you have the ego or even the self, that is, spiritual pride, which is not truth, which will bring about fire by friction, since the intelligence of the light is there. Remember, in previous years, we used to talk about calls to order, there were fractures, there were many things that happened when the body of eternity arrived. Now what I am telling you is that Agape is no longer only in the heart-to-heart resonance, or in the practice without practice, that you have done, or in intentions, but manifests itself in an increasingly spontaneous way. And it's inevitable. So, once again, in relation to any misunderstanding whatsoever, in your personal life, in what is happening in your country, in relations between people, it does not matter, because inevitably, there can only be one result, that is Agape. As I said earlier, at the limit, we are all Eber, but even forget Eber. We're Agape, period. But Agape is like the body of eternity, it is in the ether. The celebration of the ether yesterday, as Fahim said, is to have merged heaven and earth, that is, the waters from above and the waters from below. From there, it is inevitable. The phenomenon we call in chemistry catalysis, where you don't act, a catalyst is something that is present, that doesn't change and that transforms the whole balance of the system. We are all catalysts, not of change, but of resurrection. I said it, I repeat it again, for example, in the history of Christ, it is still an example, even if it is not something to adhere to as our religion, but to live. It's exactly the same thing. That is, the simple fact of living Agape, even if you are not smiling or laughing all the time, of course, is enough to trigger, through your presence and absence, the alchemical process. It's a chemical reaction in the true sense of the word. This chemical reaction, by the way, well, I'm not going to talk about that, but it's quite obvious, you know, that we have in our body, the happiness hormone, which is called oxytocin. It has been shown that when we hug each other and kiss or pay attention to each other, by touching, looking, welcoming, we increase oxytocin inside the body and increase dopamine, which means that you are immersed in the bath of love. And the worst thing is that even if you're in rebellion, in relation to creation, in relation to what Deborah may have said or what the speakers may have said, well, even this rebellion or this force that you are opposing, it transforms itself by Agape. So we're not the acting agents now. We did it, that is, the absorption of essences, the heart-to-heart resonance, the Agape resonance, but now it is done automatically. And every day, every hour, individually as well as socially, family and group, do not let yourself be deceived by circumstances that can sometimes be unpleasant, because just behind them, it is only Agape's work that illuminates everything, absolutely everything. Not to make us feel guilty, not to seek responsibility, but to grasp and understand in the sense of understanding beyond the mind, that truly and concretely, even here in this world, everything is love. Not as a cause, but precisely beyond the causes. And that, of course, when you live Agape, even if it is not yet constant, even if you are forced to do these practices without practice, or to put your hands as has been said to live this, there will come a time when you will be Christ. That is to say, you will walk in the street, and many have noticed it, when going shopping, people smile, they don't know why. That is, there is no longer, all the conventions of fear, propriety and good thinking, are no longer of any interest. When you are natural, you recognize yourself in the other, in whatever circumstances, and this, once again, whatever the apparent price to pay in relation to what is fashionable in Western societies, that is, what is called security. But what security? Emotional security? Financial security? No, the security of love does not need any other security. It's the only thing that's permanent. And the more experiences you have that show you this in every possible way, the more you will actually, through Agape's lighting, consume literally everything that might seem misunderstood to you, everything that might still seem difficult to you. So, yes, it's not marketing, but to tell you that Agape is the answer to everything, it's obvious. Anyway, I can't sell it to you, laughs. I can't sell it to you, I can't sell you what you already are, it seems so obvious to me. Laughs. And from the moment it's quantum, if you can say, from the moment we're enough, as you said Yannick, on a comment, you've seen what we've done here to a little over a dozen. The only pitfall, what I also said, I repeat, in an official way, is that there is no question of creating an egregor. So we let things happen on their own. Because there is a risk. That is to say, if I decide or if you decide, for example, to make a call, come on, we all put ourselves in Agape, you risk, despite everything, recreating an egregor. So it has to be done spontaneously, from one person to another. Of course, we have understood it, we are largely helped by the water people, cetaceans, we are helped by plants, which bloom again in the middle of winter, which are part of the prophecies. Moreover, for those who are interested in this, and all this, we have it before us and in our hearts. That's what I was also explaining, it went from this kind of distance to a total coincidence. Everything becomes coincidence, not just a sign, everything adjusts itself. And the more you accept this principle, even if you have to act, as I said, it is you who drive, as a person, your car, but the more you accept it as a fundamental principle and that you verify it, the more you will do yourself a service, but above all, you will be in service, not to humanity, but in service to love, which makes no difference between this world and all the other dimensions, between the good and the evil, between thieves and the good. Because in the end, what is that? The good, the bully and the mobster. It is the infernal triad in which we have all played since the beginning of time within the confinement. The executioner, the victim and the rescuer. But we are all of us have been, both the victim, the executioner and the rescuer. we came out of this infernal triad, the infernal triad of duality, which has been replaced by the triangle of the new Eucharist, that is, the reunification of the Trinity into unity. The Son is born. So, we no longer even need Eva, we no longer even need Mary, we no longer need the historical Christ, since we are Christ, all without exception. We are the body of Christ, in its entirety. But here, I am not talking about history, I am talking about Christ as a Christi, that is, the burning sun of the sun. Remember, it's not an acquisition, it's a restitution. It has nothing to do with consciousness, even if it is expressed, of course, through our body and through consciousness, since it predates creation, and all the brothers and sisters who have lived it, can no longer be fooled by spiritual laws, whatever they may be, or even by energy laws. You become independent of the circuits, which you have experienced, for those who feel the energy, the chakras, or the vibrational circuits, which are there, of course, you can't deny them when you feel it, but you are no longer carried away by it. You remain in this lucidity of the present moment, you are fully present yourself, at the same time as you are, in a way, absent in your person, and absent from the self. And now you're real. It is this thirst for truth, even if it is poorly expressed, this thirst for freedom. As I said, freedom is no longer only external, no longer only internal, but it is also reflected in your life, whatever your position. And you will notice for yourself that even if there are still logical concerns about the obligations, as they say, of the person, of society or of this world, you will be able to deal with them less and less. Because you will clearly perceive that your freedom, your state of being and non-being, is much more important than all the games in this world, all the role plays. And when it happens, what do? Well, you're free to go. That doesn't mean you're going to stay in your corner waiting for something to happen, but you're going to the opposite, like the one who's being told he's going to die, you're going to enjoy it, you're going to free all the obstacles. You know very well that when you announce death to someone, there were the 5 stages of the shock, not of humanity, but of the shock of the person, as described by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, which are more or less the same as those described by Sri Aurobindo at the level of the shock of humanity, but this happens independently of you. And there is such a restitution of this agape that even if you don't understand it or express it in a violent way, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Because you will really find yourself and allow everyone to find themselves. That is, you are, we're all, the actualizers of the oath and the promise. And not necessarily in so-called spiritual circles or at meetings here. It can happen when smiling at a child on the street, it can happen when passing in front of the cashier at the supermarket, in the same way. I have also experienced it in the same way with people who are not in a so-called search for spiritual truth, but simply people who have social disputes in France, in yellow vests. In fact, they express a dispute, but what appears through the speeches is, above all, this thirst for freedom, and this thirst for truth. You can't cut through that one. Even among those of us who may have been used to some forms of compromise, because there were some compromises in life, you will find that it is no longer possible at all, and that there is no price to pay, even if it seems enormous to you. If you accept that, whatever happens to you in your life, but you're free instantly. And again, don't see an ego problem, don't see a karma problem, don't see a positioning problem, but just the game of installing Agape, that's all. And everything will be, at that moment, an opportunity and a pretext to let this Agape blossom in every glance you take, in every relationship you establish, at whatever level. Of course, the few practices you have done there, which we can't give like that on video, because we have to practice it, that we are together to do it, place you spontaneously. But you will notice very quickly, it may be in a week, in a month, I have no idea, that you won't even have to put your hands as I said, it will do itself. Not your hands, but what's related to that, will be done without a gesture or movement. You won't even have to think about it anymore, it'll be there independently of you. And not just between brothers and sisters, in the wild. You saw yesterday the communion we had with the eagles or vultures, the 7 eagles, with the dolphins, since the whale was blocked by sonar, but it will be the same with anything. Because you will present yourself, because naturally, without effort, the predominance of the here and now, the present moment, provides an inner state that cannot be affected, even by what you are experiencing. This is not a decoupling. Sometimes you may feel like you don't understand why you are light, when everything is terrible. Moreover, even those who are in Agape manage to laugh even at problems. It does not mean that we are crazy, it does not mean that we are completely out of control, but on the contrary, that we are fully present. And the more you are in the present moment, whatever you do, whatever it is that does itself, the more likely you are to be more and more free internally and externally. And if this is implemented naturally, you can only make him aware, you can only see it, and then it will get stronger, inevitably. There is no other possibility, no other. Who wants to continue? There are not only questions. Do not forget also, and I repeat here again, that even if you have things to say about what you are experiencing or what you think without questioning me, you're as much the actors of the satsang as I am. There is no master or student, we are all at the same level. So, don't hesitate to tell yourself, don't also hesitate to say, because it's not for you that you say it, it's for Agape. So, Muriel. Bridget, do you have a written question? Well, wait, I let Muriel speak, and then you write it to me, your question, but not right away, you will write it to me when I ask you. Go ahead, Muriel. Muriel. Well, there are 2 things, well, I'm living now, especially since yesterday. There is this kind of internal bombardment that dissolves what remains to be dissolved, and, today, above all, this kind of seizure, it's very difficult to express, actually. Yes, there are no words. Well, you have to find words, though. Laughs, we want to sing it, write it, draw it like Joe does. Continued. That's it, yes, it grabs and it carries and everything else, but, it doesn't matter, what? There's this infinite gratitude, yeah, so it's taking my throat right now, too, that's all. Laughs, this infinite gratitude of love that reveals itself to itself, what, and that gives itself, and then it's a word, love, but it's without words, in fact. Yes. It's just beautiful. And it can take any form. Well, as an artist, you must have also noticed that your creative spontaneity is magnified. Because there is no longer what the other person will think, that is, you become totally spontaneous. And by the way, the more spontaneous you are, the less you take into account social conventions, communication conventions, relationships, the more you are yourself. Muriel. Yes, that's right, I really feel like becoming natural again, maybe, laughs. It was, of course, we feel the energies, so we know where it is happening. Sometimes it is there, sometimes you feel a jouissance that goes up there, but even those who feel nothing are able to perceive it in consciousness, even without energies, even without vibrations. And the more it is going to be, the more we will have the chance to see the days pass, the more it will be magnified, the more important it will become. Workshops where people, for example, in October, where people sang spontaneously, where people, you can't curb life, you can't freeze it. This is what we express through evidence, through dance. I have other videos to put on, I didn't have time to put them on the dolphin dance yesterday, which was a synchronized dance. We have other videos that I'll put next, where we really see this synchronized dolphin dance. We, too, are doing synchronized dancing. This synchronized dance is not a body dance, it is the round, I would say, of consciousness. This round of consciousness creates a form of ultra unification of consciousness into the one consciousness, prior, in what has been called the law of one, not a return to unity. It is already underway, it is what we live there, our own unity is the unity of, but also plants, fauna, flora as Fayem said, peoples of nature, which allows us to live this. and it's going to get stronger and stronger. That is, this need for freedom and this need to express, even if it is not with words, and art for that is remarkable, whatever the form of expression. That is to say, you do not make plans, you do not make plans on the comet, you express the present moment. And you all know that when you give free rein to your creativity, whatever form it takes, you feel good, whatever your situation, whatever the state of your body. And it's so, indeed, contagious and so much more and more evident. Who can resist love? Because as soon as you are true with yourself, as long as there are no prevarications, pretenses, lies, social, family or behavioral conventions, well, your behavior is free. That's why habits have been broken, at all levels. Even me first. The habits we had for 4 years, where we were, they were broken, to be available, not to hurt you, not to put obstacles in your way, on the contrary. And everything that happens in your life, even if the first look is a look of doubt, fear or misunderstanding, the experience of your life lets you to understand that what is important is not to understand, and that you cannot understand it until you have lived it. This is the difference between a brother and a sister who is installed in Agape, with evidence, even if it is not constant, and the one who is still looking. Because the one who no longer seeks is content to live. Because he knows that living, not is life, but life, is freedom. We no longer ask ourselves questions about the future, about tomorrow, about dimensions or worlds. Of course, we look at what's happening on Earth, we're not fooled. Of course, we see what happens in our lives, when we suffer, when we have relationship problems. But Agape allows us to magnify all this by crossing it, but really by transfiguring it. Here I am not talking about transfiguring the person, but I am talking about transfiguring everything that can appear on the screen of consciousness. And everyone expresses it in their own way. If it's art, it's lighter. If it's violence, obviously it's more hateful, but whether it's art or violence, it only leads to that. We're obliged to know this. And all this is happening in an increasingly evident way. Again, I say it again, you know, so far, that's over. It is over, there can be no turning back in any way, individually, collectively or in the whole of creation. I had already stated it since May and June, but now it is a reality. It is really lived, with increasing ease. When you accept that, you have to dare to accept, you have to dare to welcome. I'm not saying it's always easy, you know, when you have an event, in your body or in your life, that's terrible, well, of course, it's going to lead us to no longer be in action-reaction, but in what I call proaction. To embrace the other is to embrace even his violence, his anger, and you will see that there is nothing more disarming than embracing. In embracing, you can't refuse anything. Love cannot refuse anything, it crosses everything, because it remains intact. And in this world, it grows day by day. It is not linked to our person, it is not linked to our action, it is not linked to any will, it is, as I said, automatic and spontaneous. If you accept this automatism, this spontaneity of this Agape, you will find that you will go through everything that can happen without any problem. And moreover, by crossing now, as Agape is present everywhere, as the body of eternity was present in all the brothers and sisters of the earth, well, at that moment, as soon as you really let go, drop the matter, as they say, Agape takes charge of everything. On conditions that you do not ask, because if you ask, it is not possible. That's why in the Agape resonances you made last night, there was no question of wanting to heal, it was a question of making a heart resonate in front of another heart. But this heart-to-heart resonance does not simply benefit what I said, the transmitter, the receiver, because we realize that there is neither transmitter nor receiver, that there is only what is in between. And that's what creates, even if you have trouble putting words into it, so we're going to translate it into music. We're going to translate it into energy perception, we're going to try to put words into it anyway, because we need to communicate. But look, for example, here we have two sisters who come from Portugal, who do not speak French. Did it bother anything to live what was to be lived? Well, no, it was even, as I said, something much more rewarding. Because since we don't understand words, we can only embrace what comes out and see what it does to us. That is, we have shunted the mind, we have shunted the brain, what I called or what Douglas Harding called headless vision. And this headless vision is not a vision of a person or listening to a word, it is what happens in your intimacy that is the intimacy of the other that is expressed. Of course, we didn't need to understand all of Sandra's and Luis's words, we lived them in us. And they too, likewise, do not understand our words, and yet they live it. You see that it is not a story of shaping expression, but it is really, not a communication, but a communion in Christ, in Agape. That is what is happening. It is the concretization, as I said, of the new Eucharist, that is, the new Trinity, that brings us back to the one, and that brings us back to the zero, that is, to the zero time. And absolutely everything conspires, in creation, not to hide, but to reveal. It is a conspiracy of truth, which opposes the conspiracy of confinement. That is why the simulacrum joins the sacred, they are only the two sides of the same side of the creation. Agape love is prior to creation, is prior to any form, to any world. And when you go through that, well, actually, you don't really want to imagine a karma law. On the other hand, it does not prevent us from living, quite the contrary. And on the contrary, to live even more, to really enjoy life even more. It's not about money, I told you, it's about time. To have time, to be time, to transcend time. Of course, there are privileged atmospheres. It is obvious that here, we are still more cozy, we will say, that being on the street with yellow vests is more pleasant to be with dolphins and whales than in the street to demonstrate. But it is the same efficiency, it is exactly the same, despite the violence, despite the clashes. As the saying goes, in all social movements today, it is over, there will never, ever, ever be a return to the past. That is why they asked us to get rid of our habits, not just our personal habits, but our collective habits, what we call insurance, social insurance, life insurance. But life doesn't need to be insured, come on. It is society that needs to be reassured, not us. And in the end, there is no society that can stand before. Because society, you know, like finance, is based on what? On trust. But this trust, it is disguised every time. How can you trust what is wrong and what is happening? We're replacing this pseudo-trust in the societal, family and emotional fabric with a trust in Agape. And trust in Agape cannot be accompanied by any compromise or deviation. It is not because we would make mistakes, it is because it is simply impossible. We do not decide, it is like that and it changes life, because at that moment you can express, every minute, what was called conscious co-creation, the sacred feminine, the sacred masculine, without any ulterior motives, with no other idea than to settle in the present moment. And we all know it, for those who make either pottery, or music, or drawings, or even a video game, a real one, you're immersed. When you're immersed in what you do or think you're doing, whatever it looks like, you're real. Because you do not depend on circumstances, you do not depend on money, you depend only on the time you give it, and the space you give it. This is what is happening at the level of humanity, at the level of creation, and which you will see more and more easily, everywhere, in all eyes, in all inner states, and especially for us humans, in all the human resonances that we establish. Who doesn't take age into account, who doesn't take into account a physical appearance, a style of clothing, who doesn't take into account a religion or an affiliation with anything. That is to say, even the relationship, and we all live it here, and we live it in all environments, even the yellow vests that are in the roundabout, they realize that there is a real fraternity. But not a fraternity in the sense of freedom, equality, fraternity. Even if they cannot express it, they realize that we are all connected by love, by freedom. So, yes, the predation is over, there are only leftovers, our own societal habits, our own family habits, the rules that have been imposed on us both by the taking of form, that is, the incarnation, and not only in this world, in all the worlds I speak. What we are saying here as human beings is not only about human beings. It concerns angels, archangels, principalities, dominions, all hierarchies. We don't care about these hierarchies, we no longer need hierarchies, neither this world nor from above. This is the end of the simulacra, even of spirituality and consciousness. And that could only be achieved on earth. So I'm not talking about the elders and the stars, but I'm talking about the archangels, for example. We're the masters on board. Masters does not mean to direct and control, because we're the masters on board what? Of Agape, and Agape is not encumbered by any hierarchy, any superiority, even prestigious beings, triangles, even Mary. We do not have to be subjected to anything. I'm not advocating anarchy, in the societal sense, laughs. It won't be anarchy, we won't find any other words yet, we'll stop with the words, but it's a priori the same principle. Neither God nor master, since I am my master and I am my God. I'm all that. And when you're master, when you're Agape, what idea can come from subjugating or controlling anyone? Be Agape, even in so-called family, emotional, conflictual relationships, indeed, take people in your arms, look at them. You do not need words, you do not need justifications, you need to be totally spontaneous, and the more spontaneous you are, that is, without thinking, even if you have the impression that it seems eccentric to you, you'll see that the intelligence of the light, it will be there and you will understand that it is the intelligence of the light, because you are living it. I said it, as Enel said, you can't understand it, you can only live it. Understanding is self-understanding. It is not an intellectual understanding. IDADE, said so. It's about understanding. But understanding cannot be mental or deductive. It is simply the evidence of life, which manifests itself. And you can only notice, from that moment on, that whatever the difficulties that exist in your life, in your body, in your relationships, Agape takes everything. And that the more you accept this, the easier it will be for you to see that everything is being done to get you to this, even in things that you reject or that seem intolerable or unjustified or abnormal to you. There is nothing wrong, it has been said, everything is in its right place, even you. To allow you to live Agape. Because this life is the summary, not only of all lives on this earth, but of all forms, since we are all forms without exception. From there, you want to oppose what, when you recognize yourself in everything? You can't oppose who you are. That's what's natural and spontaneous. And that's the only freedom. And as I said, this freedom is no longer only internal, but it is becoming more and more external, in the very manifestation. Because you know very well, when you live Agape, that all the problems, like all spiritual or conscious alibis, no longer hold. And it creates a sense of freedom. And it is in this freedom that you grant yourself, that freedom is lived, for the other, since there is neither one nor the other. And that what we are discovering, as I have said several times these days, is that beyond Eba, which is even before creation, or beyond even the geneticist mothers, and the most prestigious Mary, I will be polite, go to hell, we don't need that. Laughs. We saw you. We saw you. And we met. We thank you for the help, we thank you for having led us to this freedom, and in turn, we will free you from the form, from this notion of evolution that means nothing. Love is perfect before creation. What is the spiritual delirium about wanting to solve karma or wanting to solve anything? Of course, before, it was not possible, but today it is possible. We massively reject authority, unwittingly or not, because we cannot be autonomous if there is any authority at all. So I see from here the parents telling me, yes, but the children, we have to educate them. No, be Agape, be what you are, and you will see that you will not need authority. Even with the most turbulent child, even with the most acrimonious grandfather, if you embrace him, but first you have to embrace him, you can't have proof before. It is like the black hole, or the moment when some people start to feel that they are disappearing into this great void, and when, regardless of your state of consciousness, there are the body's reflexes that intervene and grab you. We all experience that, at times, again. It doesn't matter, it's part of the learning process. We're indeed learning freedom, that is, no longer depending on a form, a world, a dimension, an authority, an external light or any other world. The spiritual alibi for evolution, as I said, is a huge scam today. It wasn't before, because we didn't have a chance to see what was behind it. But today, it's evident. And besides, for those of you who agree to let go of all these models, even all these vibrations that you have experienced, it doesn't mean that we deny them, they are there, but you go through all this and you discover liveness. Of course, you don't have to be impatient, you have all your time, even if there is only one day left. Because as I said, you're the masters of time, all of you, without exception. This is what I expressed on behalf of Agape when I said I give the conductor's baton to everyone. Everyone plays their part. He does not play it by will or by technique, but by learning from experience. And when you're in this learning experience, you accept. It is really fundamental, this acceptance, to accept the unacceptable. But you can only laugh once you have crossed over. And at that moment, you're available for everyone, you're available for your children, for your parents, you're available for life, you're even available for the tax collector, it is no longer a problem. Laughs. And besides, that's what I mean, I always come back to yellow jackets because, well, I come from France, even if I'm no longer there, but it's obvious that these people, they have a thirst for love, a thirst for freedom, so it's not a fight even if it takes the appearance of a fight, it's an inner claim. Of course, it is not expressed in lightness for the moment, but it will lead to lightness. That is what is happening. Ha, Eliza, then, wait. We're going to, it's long enough to go almost to Eliza, look, hop, yes. There's still a little, there you go. We can't go any further. Eliza. Yes, so. Eliza, let's hear it. Eliza. Well, listen, yesterday, by chance, in relation to everything you said, that there is everything that is being revealed to us. Didn't I hear you? In relation to what I said. Continued. In relation to what you started saying, that everything was coming out, the whole truth is coming out in terms of manipulation and all that. Precisely, yesterday, by chance, I listened to the revelation, for example, that we're not alone, that there are aliens, that there are other worlds and all that. There was someone who was just saying, I don't know, it was someone who knew the truth, but who was saying, we couldn't inform people about all this, that there are aliens, because they would have gone mad, they would have fought, they would no longer have worked, they would have burnt down the stores, they would have told themselves, the world would have gone mad, that's why we had to keep a secret. This is what he said as an excuse for not having revealed, let us say, many truths that are still hidden from most humans. I talk to people who know about it, and they don't imagine everything that's really there, we're really in a total lie. So, I just wanted to know, what do you think? In relation to what this gentleman was saying, that the world will go crazy if he knew the truth, who we are and what has been hidden and hidden from us. The revelation is not over, as you know, in relation to what I would say is happening in the world, whether it is the revelation of Illuminatis, of econs, of predation by governments, and this has already been the case, since the beginning, in fact. That's it can't hold up anymore, it's intolerable. But don't worry about the revelation. If the revelation were crude, for example, if we had denounced pedo-Satanism, as it is appearing, in all religions and everything, 2 or 3 years ago, it would have ended up in the blood, but really. Now it won't end up in the blood. Once the element of surprise is over, even if we are not yet totally in Agape, the damping will be done by Agape, which is present everywhere, it is the fusion of the phase. And as we said, everything is clear. And everything will be illuminated, both inside and outside, in an increasingly raw way. But, except, of course, the organic portals which have no history, but all those brothers and sisters who have been adepts of this total inversion through pedo-Satanism, enlightenment, Satanism, but they are also our brothers and sisters. There is no alternative but to love them. Because by loving them, we heal them. It is not by reacting against them, even if today there is a kind of confrontation. But since Agape is there, it doesn't matter. The more it reveals itself and the more violent it seems, it means that more and more light is there, quite simply. So there are always the two sides of the room, on one side the simulacrum, on the other side the sacred. The two must meet, as I have always said, that is, it is zero time, the event, and that is collective. For the moment, it has been individual, for an ever-increasing number of brothers and sisters, but we are in the process of joining this collective. I take the societal example of the Yellow Vests. As you have seen, it is in more than 22 countries. Even if it's awkward, it doesn't matter. Do not see the hardness, but try to see the result. It can only be Agape. And I would even say, the harder it seems to you, in your life, the more resilience there is, even if you have a serious illness, even if you have had a terrible accident concerning your life and your health. You are not going to find the resources in you, you don't have them, it's impossible, you are going to find the resources in Agape. But Agape not only in your heart's heart, as has been said so far, but everywhere. All you have to do is meet a brother or sister who has already lived Agape, so that everything that seemed insurmountable to you can be overcome, whatever the state of your body, your finances, your wallet, your life. That is the true trust. What we call trust, you know, in the financial world, in society, we agree. I said it before, at the time of Macron's election, I told the French people who were there, but you voted for him, you will assume it, you gave your consent. Laughs. Even if that consent was falsified, because it was not clear, you gave it. That's all he plays on. And from the moment, as they say in economics or the stock market, from the moment trust is broken, it's over. That is exactly what is happening. And this trust is not only in relation to government, or societal organization, it is also in relation to the spiritual realm. Because when you live Agape, you realize that you don't need all these stories of evolution, all these stories of karma, all these incredible stories. We're free. And that freedom is non-negotiable. Even if we wanted to negotiate it, we couldn't. Moreover, you will notice that if you oppose the truth of love, well, you will get into friction. This is what we see with some spiritual egos that are still considering themselves as fighters of the light. Smiles, but there is nothing to fight, the light, it doesn't fight. We've always been told not to worry about that. What is important, even in physics, is not the opposing force you use. Everything you oppose is getting stronger. This is enshrined in an inviolable law of reptilian brain functioning that ensures the preservation of life and the preservation of the species. Remember that in the brain, we are amputated with the prolimic lobe, as if by chance, where there are hidden lungs, that marine mammals have. So, from there, as I have been saying for months now, it is obvious, love is obvious. But it is not obvious in research. Because as soon as you search for it, it proves that you can't live it. It is not a movement of projection of consciousness, love. It is not an internalization movement either, it is total transparency. This transparency has been guided by the 4 pillars for years. Today, they are being put into practice. You can't be real if you're not spontaneous. You cannot be totally true if your answer is conditioned by a habit or by any advantage. You are spontaneous and true when you are in the present moment, ignoring all your conditioning, all your projections, all futures. That is, when you are immersed, totally, as Enel said at the time, Hikepmunks. Whether by observing a flower, going to see dolphins or meeting anyone. If you are in this attitude, you disarm the other. Because you are not in the reaction, you're in the reception. but not a conditioned welcome, a welcome linked to spontaneity. And everything is transformed. I told you, neurotransmitters change, it's a reality. Cellular functioning is changing, it's a reality. Everything is set up, without you, provided you are in the right place. That is, indeed, as has been said, in the 4 pillars, in non-judgment, in acceptance, in self-giving. The more you give, the more you receive. And love only knows how to give, it knows how to take nothing. Love is a gift. Once again, there is no question of giving your wallet, your house, your money, it is giving yourself, whether you're rich or poor. That is the real wealth. And anyway, when you're in Agape, you can't do otherwise. Even if you wanted to use violence to reject someone, you can't. Even the worst of your enemies is not a sight of the mind, you can only love it. That's what I still say to some brothers and sisters who have fun insulting me. I tell them, listen, excuse me, I love you. Insult alone, but I don't care, I go through it and I love you. Of course, you don't have to be a masochist to go looking, in quotation marks. But where you are, you accept, you go through everything. It is not a view of the spirit, love makes it possible to cross everything. Sickness, suffering, lack of anything. In love, you cannot want for anything. Say anything that seemed pretty to say, such as Christ's phrases, does the bird care what it will eat tomorrow? Let the dead bury the dead. It's beautiful theological concepts. But did the Christians implement it? Not at all. We are implementing it. Not by being followers of any religion or movement, or any spirituality. By being real. And the only true thing that we all possess, with the same intensity, with the same wealth, is the present moment. So of course, there are many people, as I said, who spoke about the present moment, but even then all at the time, when he told me Hitgetnungs, I had to hear that 1,000,000 times, I couldn't understand it. I could accept it, but that didn't mean I was living it. Today, it's different. You accept it, you live it. Even without understanding anything. It's up to you to try it out. You will realize that the more you are, not in an obligatory service, but in a service that is obligated by Agape, not by you, it is not your power and your will, it is the absolute power of love and the absolute will of love that makes you live this. Take the first step and you will see, I can't tell you better, I can't take that step for you. On the other hand, I did say and now, I say it to everyone, what all the great masters said, what I said a few weeks ago, that it was only you and you alone who could take the last step, is no longer true. Because, as we are in each other, and as the Christic matrix is more and more deployed and structured in the sense of freedom, today, take someone in your arms, you will put them in Agape. You don't need to talk to him about Agape, the energy circuits, the chakras, the vibrations, Mary, Enel, the intergalactic confederation. They are there, in our heavens. They don't come to save us, really, we save them. Laughs, not because we are superior, but because we are indeed at the bottom of the scale. But if we are at the lowest, in quotation marks, of this scale that does not exist, it is because we have already been at the highest. You can only experience it. Try it, try it. Try trust, try to give up. Sister, I would like to talk about the celebration of the ether. When you told us that we were going to have the celebration of the ether, I said to myself, I don't think about anything, we'll see. And yesterday, I had no idea of anything either we went on this boat, the sea, already it's something, an extraordinary experience, and then the dolphins came and really, I received it as a surprise because I didn't really expect to really feel this connection, what they were and I. It was, I let it happen, what was happening? And then, on the way back, there was another sign that appeared in the sky, a heart, a good, a cloud, I say here, something else. And then, in the afternoon, it continued with the great surprises too, the story of, First of all, in this nature so amazing, so wonderful, so unexpected, finally, who doesn't, that we have the impression that it doesn't exist, what? And then, this being, this man too, who is an integral part of this place, El Capitan, laughs. Yes, yes, yes. And all of a sudden, the eagles that arrived, this magical place. And it was today that all this appeared to me, that I said to myself, that's it, that's the four elements you recognized, water, everything in the water, the sky there, that manifests itself, the air that takes shape, and then after the earth that speaks to us, and then after the eagles, nature, what? But you see, for example, I didn't try to organize it. Well, no. We had indeed planned to go on the water to see the whales. We didn't see the whale, well, we were why, we saw the dolphins and it was majestic, by their synchronized dance. Then we went out into the wild, into the natural land, we got the eagles or vultures no matter, but the 7 that were running, all that I didn't look for. It's like the whales, when I told you that we went to the junction of the 2 continents and the 2 seas there, Atlantic, Mediterranean, that's why I'm telling you that it's a video game. I didn't try to organize anything, it did it all by itself. But everyone, in their lives, has the opportunity to see this. From the moment you let go, your beliefs, habits, from the moment you are actually available. And availability, it does not need a meditative state, a preparation or anything else. It is something that is decided in the moment, because the circumstances have changed, because there is no longer any primary anomaly, because there is no longer any possibility of recurrence of the soul, that was turning in a loop. Instead of liberating the soul, we were locking it up in the material. Today, everything is available. That's the hardest thing to accept. We have been conditioned so much, already by our own body, the limits of the body. You can't fly, you can't stay like a fish in the water all your life, there are constraints, there are laws of physics. Well, even that, today, it doesn't hold anymore. It doesn't hold anymore. Same sister. That's how I felt today, earlier, when I was walking around, but it's really now that I feel it, that we are that way. Of course. We are everything. And the ether, well, the ether, we experienced it yesterday, why? Completely. That is to say, now it is like a state of being, total, that integrates, that will integrate more and more, I don't know how. Who will deploy, integrate, yes. But which deployed at that time when I felt it today, what? That's it, I wanted to share this, because it's still a surprise to me. Well, that's very surprising, I'm surprised too, if you will. It's true that what you say, when you think about yesterday, well, the whales couldn't come, we had the dolphins that replaced them. Then we found ourselves, first eating, together, then we went up to this place which is this primary forest, then we had the element the air with the eagles or the vultures, the 7 that turned. We didn't ask for it, we didn't ask for it. We were. You have made yourself available to faith materially and concretely, to live it. I didn't organize anything, except, of course, the dates. Eliza organized, because it was necessary, to organize the arrival of people on a purely material level, but everything that happened yesterday, I could neither it, nor program it, never in life. In my head, we were going to see Far EM, it was going to be perfect like that, well no, we hit something else. And we got all 4 elements. We got them and so we experienced the fusion of the phase. It's not a dream, it's the truth. What happened in December when we were with the boat, only with Aurelia, the captain, his wife, Isabel, LD and I, we experienced it. It was only after I became aware, but we were with the crossroads not only of one continent and another, one sea and another, but in terms of the history of this world, we were with the source of creation. I would remind you, however, that what is called the Strait of Gibraltar, the columns of Hercules, described by Plato in Timaeus, on the history of Atlantis, we were there. As Ollie told us, we were with see there, the rock that was in front is used by shamans all over the world because they consider it to be the axis of the world. It is one of the 2 columns of Hercules, so it is the entrance to Atlantis. The circle is complete. You know that in civilizational cycles, you may not know it, that's something that's very specific. Civilizations appear, grow, decrease, and die. All civilizations. No civilization is immortal. Now this civilizational cycle since then, even over known history, we will say for a few thousand years, through the Mayans, through Christ, Jerusalem, has circled the earth. Civilizations have completed their cycles, they have deployed in the Mediterranean, they have been transferred to Mesoamerica, and they have circled the earth. And we have already reached the origin of the world, because the origin of the first creation was Hawaii, the lost paradise, which happened in on the Leilani Estates, the famous Kilauea volcano. And you can see that the elements are awake from everywhere. Moreover, as has been said, the elementary activity was going to become more and more important. Indeed, as you say, yesterday we lived, but we were so immersed, you see, we lived it first, without question. We were. And then, today, we realized that yesterday, concretely, we had indeed crossed the 4 elements and therefore, we experienced the fusion of the phase. That's really what we did, but we didn't do it for ourselves alone, even though we were privileged to experience it live. But we didn't do it for us, we did it for life. And when you do something for life, you do it for all lives. Not only on Earth, it was said by Fermi, but for plants, minerals, animals, the so-called celestial hierarchies. It's not a matter of the spirit, it's the strict truth. Same sister. It's something that, in my opinion, is still a before and after. Of course, of course, of course. Of course. Of course. And well, we could multiply the examples ad infinitum, but understand that I never programmed that. I had planned, well, to give you some exercises that we did, that is to say 1 or 2 channeling of Apis plus the SATSANG, to make you work on this technique without the technique of resonance Agape, and it naturally led to what happened yesterday. So we do nothing and at the same time we're the actors. But the action you take is not conditioned by personality, by an expectation, but by your availability. The more available we are, the more we receive. It is by allowing yourself time and space that you discover freedom. And that's exactly what we did yesterday, of course. But we didn't seek, we didn't practice as we did before, the yoga of unity, receiving entities, energies, nor vibrations. No, we were with spontaneity. Of course, there was the preliminary organization, but simply the travel, the meals, the restaurant where we went yesterday, the boat, of course, because we have to reserve the things that concern the subject. But then we were, once it was organized, then we didn't organize anything, neither me nor you. It happened naturally. We saw the water, the groundwater, the water from below, we went to the sacred spring, you drank that water before this magical forest. Smiles, we went on the water, from the sea, we communed with the dolphins, you saw the liveness, the joy that was there yesterday, finally the people who saw the video, it's evident. So of course, there is no whale density. Since it could not find us and we could not find it, since the sonar signal, on water, is not transmitted as on land, it is modified on water. But that's okay, she sent the dolphins, who are less sensitive. You saw, there wasn't 1, there wasn't 10, there was a lot. And now, well, it's evident that I don't need to worry about anything, because I know that since we are several together, on the same place, all united by thought, by heart, Agape is unfolding. That is the celebration we experienced yesterday. And I can now say that all the elements of your life, when you are in availability and welcome, are celebrations, like making music, like drawing, like embracing the other, like listening to him. And especially to hear it. So, this, and not in the understandable sense, in words, since we have seen it with our Portuguese sisters who are there, that we do not need words. Of course, sometimes we look for words, because we would like to say something. It is the natural that comes back, but the essential, it has been done, the essential, it happened in the heart, and that, it does not need words. So of course, as we are human, we love to talk, that, unfortunately, we won't be able to do it again at that level. As long as we are not in great silence, we will use the means given to us. And the means that are given to us are our bodies, our words, our actions, and it is still the behavior called human, in its simplest humanity. That's the present moment. It was because we were as children into what we were living together that this happened. I had nothing to do with it, nor did you. It was life that answered us. The eagles came, I explained to you when there had been, in 2008 or, look, the robin, right on the roof, looking at us. Well. There you have Christ there, the robin, he doesn't move, he looks at us, he's beautiful. It's even big. He's at the entrance and he's not moving. It's OMA and Christ. And he stays, you can look, he's there, he doesn't move. If someone can take a picture of him, because I'm not going back, he's on the side. I'm not going to move the camera. It's part of the evidence of life, you see. It's part of the grace. Animals change. Yes, Farm told me, but it's the truth, yes. We have an absolutely extraordinary robin that keeps us company. So, you see, it's not the magic of our group, it's not the magic of Jean-Luc Ayoun or Eba or anything, no, it's the spontaneity of life. He came right at that moment and right in front of him. That's magic, that's beauty, that's simplicity. What do possessions represent in relation to this? Nothing. And when you experience that, what we experienced yesterday, what brothers and sisters everywhere are experiencing, what can this world hold, what can creation keep us in anything? We have the incredible opportunity, as I have said for many months now, to live the resurrection, to live the oath and the promise through our body. It is a grace, but foolish. So, all the ominous birds waiting for a date, but leave us alone with a date. Let us simply live, let us live what life offers us, or imposes on us, with the same equanimity. Why am I talking into two mics, me, here, laughs? That's what I meant, so, it's that, if you want that, even if today it still seems magical, exceptional, no, it's natural. There is nothing exceptional about it. Although it is still rare, it is not exceptional. As soon as we are available, this is done. No questions asked. No questions asked. And indeed, you have to live it to understand it. But it is not a mental understanding, it is an understanding related to living. We lived it spontaneously. It's only after that is over that we understand. It's like the first encounter with whales. The video game took us on December 11th, halfway between Africa and Europe, just where the columns of Hercules, the Strait of Gibraltar, meet the Mediterranean and the Atlantic, with the whale. And there, with the dolphins. If we wanted to program it, it would never have happened, never. It was precisely because we hadn't planned anything, maybe the waiting, the excitement of seeing the whale, and then even the whale, it was explained to us why it couldn't come, it was done by the dolphins, it was also beautiful what happened. There are other videos, I'm telling you that we haven't shown them yet, that Eddie has made, where the dance is obvious. They did a synchronized dance for us, but it was crazy. And we were with by this grace all day long, but there's no reason it shouldn't be like that every day, none. Come on, Schventel, I wanted to act yesterday's day, we didn't see the whale. No. I've been looking into it. You have. Scouted the sea, for a long time, but in the end, it was in the sky, above us. I don't know if you saw it, I took a picture. Oh. it's a form of whale cloud. I'm not the only one who's seen it. So it's true that since we came here in December, whale clouds have been around all the time. And I'm sure lasted, well, it lasted at least an hour this cloud, so? Yes, the important thing, once again I remind you that when we were with the dog before leaving, many of us felt the whale, because we were land, she explained it, and, as soon as we stepped on the water, except for a moment when we felt that we were, precisely, at one point, I was like lost, I no longer felt far and that's when there arrived the dolphins. And on the second trip, when we went back to get the whale and didn't find it, we spent an hour without living anything, and all of a sudden, it all happened, you know. We had no more expectations. Exactly. No disappointment, no expectations. Maybe we were with the status quo when we said, but, we do what, we wait what, and then they arrived. I remember, we were singing children's songs on the sea and all of a sudden, PFCHT, all the dolphins came. What? Laughs. So that's it, so it's 4, I can give you the picture I took, it's not very good, but... Well, you send it to me, we'll broadcast it. There you go. So we have a little, 20 minutes left, for those who still want to express themselves. You don't have to ask questions, you know that. As I have always said, what you have to say about what you are going through, is important for every brother and sister, because it resonates in Agape, whatever you express. Brother Bridget, she had a written question. Bridget, you had a question, are you there, Bridget, or not? No, without that, they're all going to ask questions. It's just Bridget, because she's still in the forefront, because she's the first one to have transmitted the whale's message in December, which I asked her to deliver. But I think Bridget, she's not here. It doesn't matter. You have other things to say, others, we see your picture there, well, I'll show them on the screen already, maybe, well, I have to, do you have to? So, this one and... Show me. Oh, yes, Bridget, she's here. Look at the picture. Oh, yes, indeed. I don't know if you'll see. Shows the picture. Oh, yes, you see. Oh, shit, it's closed. You have to press the little button, the switch. Which button? This one. This one. Oh, yeah, there you go. I'll show it to you again on the screen, but I'll publish it. Look at the whale, do you see it? Oh, yes, that's clear. Oh, yes, that's clear. Very clear. With the eye and everything. Oh, yes, she's beautiful. Well, we've had whales in the sky, with the special clouds that have passed, but it's true that it's surprising. We were looking at the water and you took pictures of the sky. So, we did have a beautiful heart that took shape. Is there another picture? Yes, indeed, it is. You see, even the clouds, it is not a projection or a fantasy to imagine a shape in the cloud, it is the celestial representation of what we are experiencing. That's what clouds are like now. More and more, you have seen the skies published from everywhere. You have a cloud that I published 2 weeks ago, in the shape of a whale like that, with another thing underneath. The same cloud has been seen from everywhere. Now at Mount Shasta, it's the same cloud. How can the same cloud be present here at a distance of 150 kilometers, but also a week later, thousands of kilometers from here? That's the magic of life. It is not a supposition, an assumption, or a projection, it is what is shown to us every day. And if we accept to be available, without any projection, we will see it, in us as well as outside us. There is a conspiracy of Agape, and it is real, it is a real conspiracy, because it leads us to this truth and nothing else. And I say, let's thank ourselves for the incredible opportunity to experience this, through this body. You know that the archangels envy us, so do the angels. Remember Kubler-Ross, when she was alive, in those trips out of the body, she had met an angel. And she had said to the angel, But if you had to reincarnate today, you would reincarnate as a great master, if you had to incarnate? The angel replied, not at all. If I had to incarnate, I would incarnate in the body of a child who is starving. Kubler-Ross said to him, but how could you not come to teach? And he said, no, I would come to feel the love of man towards me, because the love of man is more powerful than any universe. I'm not talking about conditioned human love, but I'm talking about agape. Because we are incarnate, because we have covered all dimensions, because we are at the origin of creation. So wait, Bridget, excuse me, laughs. Well, Bridget, write your question now, please, because I didn't see her pass, I can't go back. Sister, wait, they have it there. Oh, you have it? Oh well, wait, don't write, some of them are watching. Sister, oh, that's another question. Well, in the meantime, I'll keep going. So, yes, everything is a sign, the clouds, the flowers, the encounters, laughs. Everything. Even violence is a sign. Sister, bring it to her. Another sister, there is a question. One question. Where's the second microphone? So. Question. Thank you. If a person does not realize anything about energy, if you only put your hands in the agape settles in. Yes, you have no prerequisite to feel the energy. That is precisely the advantage. As I said, your body, our body, has become a resonator, a harp, you're a celestial harp. We saw it then with all the yogas that existed on earth, we saw it with the yoga of unity then, we saw it 2 to 3 years ago with Li Shen's dance of silence, and we see it today, in the clouds, in the flowers, when we see ourselves, everything is only an occasion for celebration and to live agape. Everything, absolutely everything. If you recognize this and accept this, not as a belief, but you make yourself available to live it, and everything will be a sign, in heaven, in your heart, everywhere. That's what magic is all about. That's what beauty is all about. And that is independent of form. Then, we have the chance to express it through a form, therefore in density. And since yesterday, many have, to Bridget, you can't make a copy and paste. Well, send it to me by email, Bridget. And especially since you only have 15 minutes left. Well, send it to me by email on Bidemall. So, if you want, everything that can happen, from the moment you welcome, will reveal to you the beauty, the magnificence of who we are and the truth. Laughs. So, Issa. I answered the question. Well, as it is written, yes, I'm sorry. Or maybe she didn't put the, yes. Isabel. Last night, you explained to us the strength of the word agape and how it could allow us to shunt all the memories. Yes, absolutely. So I realized that I was rambling a little, I had already expressed it in a very developed way, in the SATSANG of December 16, 2018, where I had given a lot of elements. I didn't have time to do the research on the Sumerian Gina Abdul syllabary, nor on the ancient Hebrew alphabet, that is, passing the river, where instead of representing Hebrew letters in the spelling that we know, it is represented by constellations. I didn't have time to do the research, but indeed, I repeat what I explained off the record, agape is not a word for pretty. Laughs. This is the neuroscientist talking. When you say love, you are not in love, because you are bearers of all the falsified memories of love on earth that you have experienced, betrayals, altered understandings of love, since we were wooed from the agape. So when you say unconditional love, your brain recognizes everything you have experienced as love. Because when you say unconditional love, it's a condition. It means that there is a love that is not unconditional, and that is the truth. When you say agape, it is not to look pretty or to be Greek, or to be learned. This work came spontaneously, and also from elsewhere. We have a site called Agape Press, which you know, it's not like that, something, yes, it came like that, I didn't look for it. But when I am available, the information comes in. There is no need to understand it myself. Bridget had expressed it. I have no superiority over anyone. Just maybe I've been maybe in some circumstances, not always, in my life, but maybe in some important circumstances, maybe a little more transparent, that's all. That's all, nothing more. Remember, Master Philippe de Lyon, when asked how he could work miracles, he said, "It is because I am the smallest of you." In the same way that Mary, whose great vestal of creation was made, is the smallest of us. Already in Mary's time, and still today. She's not claiming anything. She can't claim anything. How can you imagine that she claims anything? She is the bearer of such guilt, of having dreamed. You see, if we take Agape's point of view, since creation is a real dream, who started dreaming first? It's not me. It's not me. Laughs. It's Marie, and the genetic mothers. And we had to put a guard on it. A safeguard, so that forgetting and loss will one day disappear. And who has been entrusted with this dreadful mission to wake us up from our dreams? The Agans. That's right. The Agans with a limit. That is why we are asked not to forgive, but to eat them. They ate us, we're going to eat them. Laughs. Reciprocity, availability, welcome, and that's all. You don't need stories for that, you don't need conditions, you don't need power, you just need to be there. To be there, once again, is to be stripped of all the concepts, all the ideas, all the stories. Once again, as Enel said, and now I understand it better, and yet what Eckhart Tolle's books have been trying to say, for example, about the power of the present moment. But now, today, the power of the present moment, it is whole, it is not amputated by anything. And if you manage to be inserted into life as we did yesterday in the spontaneity of childhood, you have seen it on the boat, well, everything is done. And as you said, well, we experienced the four elements and the fusion of the Thes, but not just for us, not just for ourselves. The whole earth has experienced it, the whole of creation has experienced it. However, this does not mean that we are neither superior, nor the best, nor inferior. We were simply available. This question in private message, Bridget. So, you give me 2 seconds, in a private message on what, on Messenger or? You give me 2 seconds, I look at Bridget's messages, Bridget. So Bridget says to us. I was surprised, because Fayem addressed the peoples of the Intergalactic Confederation. Would they need advice up there? Oh, yes, that's right. They need us, we needed them, and the reciprocity now is to give them back. They led us to freedom, they led us to Agape, they prepared us for Agape, for more than 30 years, and for 2,000 years, excuse me, there was Christ at the beginning anyway. And now they're counting on us, of course. With the ones who are going to eat them. We don't need to be saved or taken away to preserve anything, or to go and explore the lines as I thought, as they taught us, in quotation marks. Of course, Fayem is addressing me, and of course, each of us can address the Intergalactic Confederation. There is no hierarchy, Bridget. Nothing is better than nothing. There is only life. And when you are life, and moreover, when we are incarnated here, in the densest plane, and the waters from above have joined the waters from below, but obviously that the Intergalactic Confederation that is there, it awaits only our goodwill. They are not the ones who decide. Besides, it's always been said. It is neither we nor them who decide, it is Agape, which results in the set of circumstances. So, yes. We're going to eat the Intergalactic Confederation of the Free Worlds. Accent laughs. We're going to have a feast. Accent laughs. And it's the truth, it's the truth. Laughs. There's nothing logical, but that's exactly what it is, that's what's happening. We have allowed them to reveal themselves in us and to awaken in us, since they were in us. We're the key, we're humanity. We're the key to the dream of creation. And we awaken, really and concretely, the whole of creation. Because we found each other and woke up while we were locked up. These are free worlds. I told you that an archangel does not have a defined form, since according to the dimension, his form is not the same. I told you that Michael, for example, in 18D, it is a form of a swallow of 18,000 kilometers in size. Michael, the anthropomorphic representation, is the young man who defeats the dragon. But they are only representations. Enel, when he came the first times, I had the opportunity to say it. I had the opportunity to say it when I saw it the first time. After to evoke or invoke it, I imagined it in the form in which I had seen it. He came back and said to me, "But you're not going to freeze me in a form." I didn't understand anything about what he meant. That was in 2008. What the hell is he telling me? Because for me, it was impossible to change the shape. We are so dependent on a form, a frame, the skin self, that is, the limit of our body. There are some, there are others, there are some, there is the environment. We were so compartmentalized, so locked up. So, yes. Yes, as I was answering Bridget, we are not the masters on board, but we are Agape. We're in the form, the most dense, the most fixed, the one that has been most deprived of light and yet life. Love were there, amputated from memory, that is, we had forgotten, but we are neither superior nor inferior, on the contrary. The four pillars, humility, simplicity, childhood, transparency, all this is what led us to live that moment. So yes, they rely on us, more than we rely on them. There is reciprocity, it's an exchange. They gave us, we gave ourselves. And now, it's just a matter of letting the automatism of the life take place. And the more available you are, the more welcoming you are, the more obvious you are, the more transparent you are, the more magical it will become. Magic, no image. I refer you to what Brother K said in the pictures. Of course, we feed on images, we love to see the beautiful clouds, we love to see beautiful scenes, because it is the support. It is a support, like musical, artistic or rather creation, but really, when I say that we the masters, it does not mean that we are masters, but we are Agape, collectively. And the earth is the space of resolution. We must not worship anyone, we must not follow anyone, we must be available for ourselves, not for the self, but for the truth. That's all. That's all. From there, everything is done automatically. And the light asks you every day, are you available? In all the circumstances of your life. Until you understand by living it that you have no control over anything, while being the masters. That's right, Agape. It is not the master who controls and directs in hierarchies. Nothing is superior, nothing is inferior. Moreover, creation does not exist, it is a dream, in all dimensions. It was a game that could only end. In the same way, analogically, when you sleep, you don't ask yourself if you're going to wake up. Without it, you can imagine the anguish every night. It's automatic. Well, Agape is automatic. As much as we have the automatisms in the reptilian brain that are safeguards, preservation of the species, survival reflex, conditioning, programming, education, as much, outside the brain, what we have to live is life. That is what we are doing, that is what we experienced yesterday, that is what each of you is experiencing, whatever your situation, at whatever level. And you are countless, brothers and sisters, who have no job, no money, no nothing and who are discovering the truth. Because it needed to be naked, in the interests of this world. I am not criticizing wealth or poverty, I am simply saying that everyone is in exactly the right place. There are some who are in the very good place by being poor, others who are in the very good place by having a lot of money or a lot of affection. But it is the same place, it is simply circumstances adapted to allow the revelation of Agape in the easiest way for each of us. If you need abundance, you'll have abundance. If you need despair, you'll have despair to live Agape. It makes no difference. There is no difference. The difference is the point of view of the person, the difference is the suffering of the moment, the feeling of lack, but in Agape, you can't lack anything. Your embrace, your embrace. As long as you think you are short of money, even if it is real, it is an illusion. As long as you think you are rich with a well-filled bank account, it is also an illusion. Agape doesn't care about that. Agape has no need of conventions from any world, nor of any circumstance of anything. And it is, as I said, it is our freedom, our availability, our embrace, the installation within the four pillars, the heart of the heart, for those who feel the vibrations, all this alchemy that has taken place since the birth of Christ 2000 years ago, and all the work that has been done by the descent of the Holy Spirit since the 1980s, which today allows the finalization, if I can say so, of what has never begun. It is the Alpha and Omega that come together in a loop, the end of the dream of creation, that's all. If you accept it, even intellectually, try it, for those who are still in their beliefs of karma or evolution, or understanding by scientific explanation. Of course, it is necessary. I don't criticize those who explain what is happening, for example, electromagnetism, because people will arrive in Agape with that. All paths are good for Agape. We developed for the most part the vibratory path and the energetic path, which was important for the spramental, not for Agape. Since, look, even Sri Aurobindo in the spramental, when he spoke, even Bernard of Montreal, he was talking about the new root race, the sixth root race, the blue beings. But we've been blue before, blue beings. All these were just projections of consciousness, because until last year, no one could experience this and see this. Even the great mystics, even Padre Pio, even the greatest stars. If, indeed, they have led us towards surrendering to the light, I remind you of Hildegard's Canis of Bingen, for example, or Teresa's childhood path, or the incredible, phenomenal capacities of Gemma Galgani's experiences, who spoke with her angel every day. They were preparations. And now, the preparations are complete. Tell me, we're gonna have to stop, it's 6 o'clock. So, I thank you all. I finish the recording and then I tell you for you, what you have to do. Thank you to everyone for listening. Through Jean-Luc Ayoun. Les Transformations. Transcript. Agape Team. English Translation. LMF.